So I haven't spoken in a while. I made these videos. I spoke in my last video about how myself, my wife and my child were almost rammed off the road in the back roads of Tramorda, out over the cliff. That's how crazy this stuff was getting. I spoke in the video before that how there was drugs planted in my apartment. So obviously I'm kind of picking at a scab that somebody doesn't want me picking at. But I've spoken previously about the dealings of a solicitor and how she got her actions covered because she was able to turn to a local TD, basically. She's not the first person involved in this that was able to turn to this same TD. But I'll get to that on a later date. I just want to talk about now the actions of Waterford Council and what they're basically trying to suppress. And again, this local TD, has these kind of fingers in Waterford Council again. So I'll just take it from there. So after a whole fiasco in court, I was eventually then kind of evicted over the sexual shaming which was done to me out in the Tramway. I told you that this was kind of the person that done this walked into the courtroom, sat next to me ex, laughing over, obviously connecting both of it. So it was spread around all around Tramway. Put in this kind of, he's a caretaker, I don't really mean landlord, he was a caretaker to apartments, put in his letterbox to try and have us evicted. Basically, he got us evicted. He was after upping the rent 2 or 3 times before that. He was a greedy little bastard, to be honest with you. And he was after upping the rent, and kind of he wanted us gone. He was after reporting my wife living there before that. That's how he got, because I was in a contract for 500, I think it was €500 a month, and the rents had gone up to 750 a month. So obviously he was angling at me paying the 750 a month. I told him where to go. To cut a long story short, he got us evicted. Anyway, I was put there originally because I had an argument with another person in another previous apartment. His name was Tony Kelly. Waterford Council intervened and they separated us. He basically passed comments to the kids. Basically at the time I think the kids were like 7 and 11, and I moved into the apartment above him, and it was agreed that I take the kids 2 nights a week, and he was complaining saying that I had the kids every night of the week and he couldn't sleep, and basically he ended up saying something to the kids and basically an argument ensued, and Waterford Council ended up having to separate us. So they got me another apartment, this Apollonian Suites, and we were separated. So basically I ended up getting evicted from Apollonia Suites then over the sexual shaming, which basically was done by me ex, if I'm being honest with you, and this Powhigh crowd. So I'll take it from there, right? I was given a new house by Waterford Council then. This was in 2016, up in 83 Barrack Street. A lot of people will know this already. The daughter many people will know the daughter now of this house, so she's a local shitstorm, if I'm being honest with you. But she made it her mission to try and come in and get a tattoo off of me. I tattooed her just to keep the peace, being honest with you, rather than getting into more arguments with people, but I tattooed her. But she felt the need to constantly tell me how her father was in the fucking IRA and all this kind of bullshit, basically, that really went over my head. But she was there really to just lay the groundwork to try and instill some kind of fear for further down the road, right? I was at them and told how my ex was at a meeting with these neighbours. Now this was actually a couple of days even before I moved into the house. I was at them and told that my ex was at a meeting with the neighbours. I reported it to the guards and I reported it to the council. I was told by the council, by Joe Daniels in particular actually, that this was somebody just trying to spook me and I should ignore it and move into the house. So I did move into the house, if I'm being honest with you. I'm just reading off of some bullet points here now, just in case anything I'm reading off a script. Anyway, yeah, I reported that my ex was apparently down. Now bearing in mind now she won't let me see the kids because the whole court fiasco and like playing her mind games. So I ended up basically having to walk away, being honest, because I just couldn't deal with her. And every time I moved somewhere, she would come down and say, "Oh, do you want the kids for the weekend?" And obviously I'd say, "Yeah." This shit would start off again. But this is what happened. This was the second time this happened, and it happened up in Barrack Street. And these neighbours, I'll just point out now, they campaigned for TD David Conlan of Sinn Fein. I had the daughter in there telling me then that her father was in the IRA and they campaigned for him. Now, to be honest with you, that stuff goes over my head. I don't really pay much attention to it. I stay out of it, if I'm being honest with you. My ex came down, offered me the kids for the weekend. Obviously, I said yeah. So when she dropped the kids down, Not only did she know where the address was straight away. Now I was in the house like 2-3 weeks at this stage, and she dropped the kids down, and when I bent down to pick up the child getting out of the car, she mouted something into the neighbour's window, and she pointed. I had my back to her, she pointed down at me. My wife was in the sitting room looking out through the curtains at this, and my ex mouted something in and she pointed something, so I picked up the kids to give her a hug, and basically then we had the weekend, and that was it. But as soon as the kids went back, then these neighbours started all their shit, basically harassing us and the usual kind of bullshit that was going on kind of from place to place, if I'm being honest with you. But this happened, as soon as she went back, this happened. This began, right? And then one day there was honestly about 30 people outside the house, and they were talking about fucking kicking in the door and dragging me and my wife out. Now the vents were the houses were built so badly, the vents were in earshot. So you could actually stand by the vent and you could hear all these clowns because they're all lined up beside the door, like on either side of the door. So I walked over and I fucking opened the door real quick, and I'd say probably 25 of the 30 people, they all ran into the neighbour's house. You think they would have scattered, but they all ran into this neighbour's house, this fucking alleged IRA head, trying to spook me on, obviously. So like myself and my wife, basically like you couldn't live there. It was unlivable there. It was a shithole, being honest with you there now. So we moved out. We reported to the county council. We were told to put our complaint in writing to have it investigated under the Anti-Social Act or something. So we done that. No, so we were only there literally like 5 or 6 weeks. I was 27 years on the housing list to get that house. So I got the house. As I said, I was only there 5 or 6 weeks. I got the grant for the house. So I got all new furniture and cookers and all that kind of stuff. So while it was being investigated, obviously we couldn't live there with all the kind of drama that was going on up there. But we left our clothes, we left our furniture, we left all our bits and pieces in the house while it was being investigated. As I said, I reported this to the council and I reported to the Carrolls. In this time then, I heard David Cullen on the radio, I think it was, and he was talking about cronyism, and the only way to deal with corruption was with transparency and all this kind of stuff. Basically is what my case needed. The case needs to be dealt with transparency because there's too much corruption going on and all this. So I wrote to him and I informed him about members of his own party basically would canvass for him and the sexual slander that they were spreading. And basically Mr. Conan basically gave me a polite fuck off, that he had no interest. And then later that evening he had the cheek to send my wife then a friend request. Now I've uploaded all that since, so. And because these people had canvassed for him, they feel like they have some kind of protection by the likes of him and by the likes of Sinn Féin, which is what needs to be answered, if I'm being honest with you. Like, have people within the Sinn Féin community been afforded certain rights where they can act a certain way? As I said, I realise what Mr. Conan spins in the media is in stark contrast to how he actually conducts himself. And not only that, but by some of the people that he surrounds himself. Not all the people, now. Some of the people are in the political arena for the right reason, but there's a lot of them, like, they're quite happy to use the stigma of the Sinn Féin and IRA to try and threaten, gaslight and bully people. We are all aware of his moronic comments of his up the rat, which realistically he should have been fucking reprimanded and pushed back out, realistically, because even if you can say he got carried away, it wouldn't change your whole political stance to make you say something like that. So, do you know what I mean? But where's the rest of the TDs from the other parties to stand up and fucking call for this? Excuse the language there now. As I said, we left all our stuff up in the house because it was apparently being investigated. We left the clothes, furniture and all this. And I was told that the daughter of the neighbour now, people will know her, she's a local shitstarter, this one now. She was trying to get people to break in to the house to rob me tattoo stuff, basically. And I was told. So I went up and I got my tattoo stuff. And I left it briefly. My mother's out in Tranmore. I mean, literally for 5 or 6 hours, I'd say. The nosy neighbours out there are watching me bringing in the tattoo stuff. But what they didn't know was 5 or 6 hours later, I came along and I took it back out the back door and I brought it off out of there. So my mother started getting grief then, people thinking that I was in there tattooing. I wasn't in there. I literally only left the tattoo there I literally only left the tattoo and stuff there for a couple of hours. And as I said, I took it out the back door and I went elsewhere with the tattoo and stuff. But she started getting harassment by a small section of Sinn Fein members yet again. I'll give you one example, right, of the harassment that my mother was getting, right. There was a neighbour directly next to her, right. And what he done is that he put a stereo on my mother's wall, right. And for fucking a day and a half, he played my father's funeral song on loop over and over and over again into my mother's garden. That's how much of a scumbag this fella is now. And the guards were called. I didn't go out because I probably would have ended up being arrested. But my brother went out and he called the guards. The guards came down and your man told the guards to fuck off. And the guards basically went off, done nothing about it. And he was left to do this. So this was the kind of harassment that my mother was getting out there. And one morning then she got up and she used to go down around town, do her bits and pieces. But she felt a bit sick. So she came back around 12:30 in the day and she went back to bed. And she woke up around 1:30 in the day, and here was Roisin Doherty and Leo Kennedy, both employees of Waterford Council, and they were in her bedroom searching around for my tattoo stuff. Now you can imagine the fright my mother got. Now Waterford Council don't want this getting out, and because there's numerous emails all around this. I'll speak about that now later on because they edited my file and they took all these emails out. But these two people got their actions covered by another member of Sinn Féin, who's in Waterford Council as well, and a buddy of David Conlan's again. So you can imagine this is quite serious shit. So my mother rang me and she rang my older brother. My older brother is a windbag, if I'm being honest with you. Tried to tell my mother not to do anything about it. My mother didn't really want to do it. She was frightened that these people had the keys to her house and they were able to come in. And my mother's so small in the bed and she used to have cushions on the bed, and these dopes never seen my mother lying in the bed. And they were in there searching around Leo Kennedy and Roisin Doherty. And obviously if I was lying and if I didn't have proof, I would face some kind of like slander or defamation. So I'm open to be questioned on this or arrested or any kind of repercussions for saying what I've just said. I was absolutely livid, as you could imagine. My mother asked me not to go to the guards about it, that she was kind of in fear, as I said. But I went down to the Waterford Council and I spoke to Joe Daniels down there, Mr. Sinn Féin again. Then Waterford Council, this is the same Joe Daniels who informed me to move into the house that ignored that these people were after a meeting with my ex. And he told me, he tried to shush it down. He was like, my wife was with me now, she's a witness to this, and he told me that this was sensitive information and how was I going to handle it, basically trying to play it down and all this kind of shit. Basically I was absolutely livid, if I'm being honest with you. And after this there was a neighbour put directly across my mother who began harassing my mother, and this neighbour was Tony Kelly. This is the same neighbour that was separated from me a couple of years earlier over him passing comments to me kids. So like here he was putting out directly across my mother, and from the day he was in there he started harassing my mother. So this is how desperate like Waterford Council are to try and keep a lid on all this shit. But as I said, we were gone out of the house then waiting. We were being told like this is being investigated, what went on up in Barrack Street. It was being investigated. So 13 months passed and we got a letter threatening us with legal action, myself and my wife, that we were to sign over the house as we were gone out of the house. Now they were supposed to be investigating the house. Right now they were saying that we chose to leave the house, that we chose to make ourselves homeless, right? We chose to leave all our brand new furniture up there. We chose to leave our clothes up there, and that we chose to continue paying the rent for all the 13 months. Now, obviously, like anyone with a brain, that makes no sense whatsoever, unless, of course, it was being investigated, and that's why we left our stuff up there, and that's why we kept paying the rent, which is actually the truth of what happened. So this is what they were saying, like, so we couldn't believe this bullshit. Mr. Joe Daniels' outlook was, well, you can't go back up there with everything that's after going on up there, implying the harassment we were getting from the scumbag neighbours up there, who campaigned for Mr. David Conlan, a lad. So he informed us that he can pull a few strings and have his house through HAP if we are just willing to sign the papers that he gave us to sign over. And we were a bit kind of like wanting to push to sign these because I didn't really trust him, but he said he'd give us a reference in good faith to show that there'd be no hassle basically in saying that we are good tenants and all this. So he gave us the reference. Now I still have this reference. I've uploaded the reference. So we signed over the house, and we were basically ignored. From the minute we signed over that house, we were ignored. Our possessions were fucked in the bin up in the house. We were simply ignored. And as I said, if I spoke to someone, I can't really mention names here, but I spoke to someone at Waterford Council, and they said that the reference that Joe Daniels gave me is illegal. That Waterford Council do not give references to anyone. They have a rule of thumb not to give references to no one whatsoever, and he should be made answer why he gave this reference. Not only that, Roisin Doherty and Leo Kennedy of Waterford Council need to be investigated on why they illegally was in search of my mother's bedroom. And what happened with them was there was a campaign kind of, as we all know, of harassment that was kind of like pushed. And I don't like saying it was pushed by like all the Sinn Féin, because I want it just, there's a small section of Sinn Féin members and they're linked to David Conlan, and I'll say this 100%, I'm not saying it in all my videos, and unfortunately I was living next to some of these up in Barrack Street, and they think that they have the right, and for some reason the protection, to go around bullying and threatening and doing what they fucking want. And if this is what Sinn Féin realistically offers as a political party to Ireland, like, we're in deep shit. But as I said, I don't think it's Sinn Féin. I just think it's a small few members. And now obviously Sinn Féin are getting involved because they don't want this coming out. Just like Waterford Council don't want this coming out. Like, I'd hardly make something like this up, think about it. And there's loads of paperwork around all of this. And I applied for me a file not too long ago, but a year and a half ago, I applied for my file from Waterford Council. And just like my solicitor, if you go back to my previous videos, my file was edited. Anything regarding anything what I just spoke about here, right, was removed out of my file. So I said, I appealed it obviously. But during the appeal, I said what I was willing to do. I wanted to make a complaint, and I'll put back in the emails from my side that was removed, because I had access to the emails that I sent, and I offered a reference and all this. So Waterford Council just simply ignore me, because by ignoring, they know I'm telling the truth, is what they're doing. And by ignoring me, they don't need to look into it. And if they don't need to look into it, then no one can be found kind of guilty of it. And they know I have the emails, being honest with you, because I've sent in 1 or 2 letters, like with emails attached, showing that the emails that they deleted, that I still have them. And even the reference that Joe Daniels illegally gave me, I think it's up on one of my sites if you look through it. I've since found out that like Mr. Joe Daniels, who basically covered up for Roisin Doherty and Leo Kennedy, who got caught searching my mother's bedroom, is a local sympathiser of Sinn Féin, lo and behold. And Mr. Daniels needs to be investigated, as does Roisin Doherty, as does Leo Kennedy. So as you can see, like, it's pretty fucking serious what I'm saying when you think about it. It's very, very serious, do you know what I mean? And a lot of people will be worried about their jobs and their pensions, and more importantly then, how people dragged in the political group Sinn Féin. David Conlan dragged in Sinn Féin into this. I didn't drag in Sinn Féin into this. David Conlan dragged him into this. And then he's cheeky, sending my fucking wife a friend request the same day. Then he fobs me off, saying he can't do nothing. So like, your transparency regarding corruption and your cronyism, you're basically full of shit, basically. And because I'm willing to say it like it is there now, I'm told, I've been informed that I could be potentially under threat. Like, what kind of a political party is this where you can't speak out against it and you're supposed to feel threatened? You say something if I was like spreading lies, do you know what I mean? But because I'm willing to tell the truth, and we all know then and then we can talk about the actions of Henry Halligan, who later on, I wrote an email to a priest who was a family friend, and I was criticising a TD. That TD turned out to be David Conlan yet again. And Mr. Henry Halligan printed off my email and gave it back to who? David Conlan. And he kept it from the priest, not knowing that I was a friend with the priest and he was a family friend of mine. And after speaking with the priest, I realised that he had no idea the emails I'd sent. And Mr. Henry Halligan had printed them off, gave them back to David Conlan, and then deleted them. And then it took me 11 times to get a message from the bishop. I emailed him 11 times and they tried to just ignore me. And he basically interfered then with me mother's funeral arrangements. A year later, unfortunately, my mother passed away. Mr. Henry Halligan stuck his fucking nose in me mother's funeral arrangements, trying to keep my family from the priest from crossing paths, to try and hide these actions of deleting me emails and giving it back to David Conlan. So now we have like Mr. Henry Halligan and co. Because I'm going to talk about that in the next week, and that whole children's grouping bullshit. Because I used to work up there. I want to volunteer up there, but I worked out as a builder, and I want to talk about some of the stuff that I seen up there and how people making allegations feels threatened. And should they feel threatened or intimidated because people can turn to a political party? That's a long time overdue being investigated. And what did they do? And what did they do? There was allegations made, historic allegations, and they changed the name of the charity to the Mary Halligan Foundation. Now, if anyone doesn't find that somewhat a little bit unethical, it's unethical as a certain worker up there who impregnated, how would I say, there was a person up there when I was working up there, she was a, she was a member, she wasn't a worker, she was like a member up there. And this person was a worker, and he would have known this person since she was a child, attending the place, and I was up there a good while actually. And lo and behold, after a couple of years, he ended up like in a relationship with this person and getting her pregnant. Now, how unethical is that? We're a worker after knowing this girl from she's a child in the place, or a young teenager, and then he ends up in a relationship with her. And I can't say the name of this person, but I'd love to say the name of this person because you'd all be very surprised. And there's so much nepotism gone up in that children's group link there now, and it needs to be investigated. And my next video there now, I'm going to talk about some serious shit. So as you know, what I've just spoken about there now, well, as you can see, what I've spoken about there is very, very fucking serious. Do you know what I mean? And it's only going to get more serious. So it should be investigated. And if you notice, I spoke in my last video about how the guards were driving around my apartment, and I actually played one or two audio recordings because I have like a couple of dozen of them, being honest with you. And lo and behold, they've stopped circling my apartment with their sirens on. So at least I know someone is watching me videos. So you'd want to pull your finger out. See that historic allegation shit up in Children's Group Link. There's a number of people that I've spoken to all have the same kind of accusations. And the only reason that they won't come forward is they feel that a certain person in that place and their brother's political influence would potentially cause their family some kind of intimidation or bullying. And that's why they won't come forward. So everybody knows what's going on. Everybody in Waterford knows what the fuck has been covered up there. And I'm far from forgetting about Henry Halligan interfering with my mother's funeral. And if I have to face fucking any kind of dangers of Sinn Fein or any other kind of group, like, so be it. Because like what happened to my mother far exceeds any kind of threats or danger from any of these groups. For me anyway. And it's not a bravado thing, it's just a principle thing. And I'm going to write a letter to Miss Mary Lou MacDonald, and I'm going to point out the situation to her. I'm sure the waters will be poisoned before she even gets my letter, I can tell you that. But what I will do is I'll upload the letter so everyone can read it and everyone can see it. Because I want to see, like, is this the way the whole lot of Sinn Féin works, or is it just a small minority in Waterford? Because I believe it's just a small minority. Because I actually know some of these people, being honest with you. I would have sold drugs with some of these people years ago. Do you know what I mean? So I know some of these people and I know them quite well. Do you know what I mean? So that's how much I find these people hypocrites. So as you can see, this is what Waterford Council were desperate to fucking keep covered up. But now they've not, I finally got to fucking say it. And look how long it took me to get to say this. So Roisin Doherty and Leo Kennedy both got caught searching my mother's. This was covered up by Joe Daniels under the guise of it being sensitive information. So I think it's about time there now Sinn Féin once and for all stepped up there now and made some kind of comment on like the actions of their members, i.e. David Conlan and his fucking cronies. Like there's other members of Sinn Féin. If you hear me, I never speak about other members of Sinn Féin because I don't have any other issues on your members of Sinn Féin or any other party for that reason. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll make my next video in a few days. And I'm still waiting to give a statement regarding being driven off the road there a week ago. Well, a week and 1 day ago. I gave it a week to make a statement, and the guard never got back to me. It's all on file, it's noted, but no one has got back to me. So I'm waiting on that. But I'll get back to you in other aspects, in other videos. And as you can probably tell there now, I'm not kind of mincing my words, and I've no intention of backing down from any of this shit there now. I'm going to say it like it is. It's a long time coming now that someone stood up to these clowns. So that's about it. Thanks for listening.